It started with a picnic, a quiet, distanced get-together in our backyard, the kind of simple, wholesome thing you plan when life feels too heavy and you just want a little peace. My husband John and I were hosting. His parents had recently moved up here, so had his childhood best friend, Dan, and Dan's wife. It was the first time all three couples had gathered since the move. It should have been easy, light, familiar. Instead, it became the moment everything cracked open. I sat down first, just 2 or 3 minutes before John. He was helping settle our toddler into a playpen nearby, which to me felt natural. Shared parenting, right? But as soon as John sat, Dan and my father-in-law launched into what they must have thought were harmless jokes. About how whipped he was, how he was doing my job by watching our child, about how, apparently, a real man doesn't miss a chance to relax and catch up with other men because he's too busy parenting. I laughed politely. I always do, at first. You learn how to deflect as a woman. It's a kind of social armor. But they kept going. Their jokes shifted into little barbs. How I didn't fix John a plate. How I had the audacity to serve myself before him. I waited for John to speak up, to say something, anything. But he stayed quiet, smiling, letting them go on. Dan and my father-in-law started bragging about how things are done right in their homes, how they handle the outside chores. And the women handle the house, the kids, the food, all of it. They made it sound noble, like a sacred Southern tradition, like chivalry, as if masculinity is proven by doing a weekly oil change while your wife folds 6 loads of laundry and scrubs the bathroom on her lunch break. For context, Dan lives in a rented condo. So does my father-in-law. There are no outside chores. And both of their wives work full-time jobs, just like I do. That should have been the end of it. But the day didn't just start sour. It stayed that way. After everyone ate, John went off on a walk with Dan and his dad. I stayed behind, cleaning up the mess, alone, while also keeping an eye on our toddler. I expected that when John got back, he'd apologize. Maybe he didn't want to speak up in front of them. Maybe he'd pull me aside after and say, "Hey, that wasn't okay. I should have said something." But when he returned, I didn't get an apology. I got a confrontation. He told me I had made him look bad, that by not fixing his plate, by not respecting tradition, I had embarrassed him in front of his family and friend. He wasn't angry at them for mocking him, for mocking us. He was angry at me for not upholding what he suddenly called a traditional division of labor, which he said was a huge part of Southern culture. And then he said something I'll never forget. He said he's been building resentment for months, that he's tired of doing half the chores, tired of being expected to parent. Because in his culture, women take care of the house and the children, and men, they do the fun parts of parenting. They discipline, they mow the lawn, they take the cars in for oil changes, as if that's remotely equal. I sat there, stunned. This man, the man I married, who once told me how proud he was to be an involved father, was now telling me that equality was too much work, that he didn't want a partner. He wanted a housewife, a caretaker, a servant. So I told him the truth. I said that kind of culture is garbage. I said what I saw in the South, and I lived there for 8 years. It wasn't hospitality. It was conditional kindness, reserved only for those who fit the mold. Be queer, be non-Christian, be a woman who doesn't know her place. You get ostracized, attacked, cut off. That's not culture. That's bigotry dressed in charm. He exploded, called me the bigot, accused me of disrespecting his background, said that if his culture were Asian or Islamic or something else global, I would have been more willing to compromise. He told me I was forcing Northern culture on him and erasing his heritage. But let's be clear, we didn't grow up in two different countries. We grew up in two different corners of the same one. And when we met, when we fell in love, none of this was a problem. We split chores evenly. We shared responsibilities. When I was on maternity leave, barely functioning from the exhaustion of pumping day and night, he stepped up. He was proud to. I remember him smiling as he folded tiny onesies, as he bottle-fed our baby at 3 a.m. He called it teamwork. So when did teamwork become weakness? When did equality become emasculation? The truth is, none of this came from him alone. It came from voices like Dan and my father-in-law, whispering in his ear, mocking him, shaming him for being a good partner, calling him whipped for showing love. It came from co-workers who gave him side eyes when he took paternity leave, from the performance review that subtly punished him for choosing his family over work. And slowly, without me realizing it, those voices drowned out mine. Now he says other men are happier, that their wives are more supportive, that they only expect their husbands to work 8 hours and spend the rest of the day relaxing. And he thinks I'm the one who's being unfair. Let me ask this. How supportive is a marriage where one person carries it all? The cooking, the cleaning, the diaper changes, the bedtime routines, the grocery runs, the appointments, the mental load that never turns off, while the other gets to coast because that's how their daddy did it? I didn't marry my husband's father. I married him. The man who used to believe in partnership, in balance, in sharing the load. Now he wants to rewrite the rules, mid-game. So I told him, if he wants someone to serve him, he can hire a maid. If he wants to parent only when it's convenient, he can ask a nanny. If he wants a wife who works full-time and still caters to him like it's the 1950s, he needs to check a time machine, not a marriage license. Because I will not raise a child in a home where love is conditional, where respect depends on gender, where culture becomes a weapon used to control. And yes, I said the words, Southern culture is garbage. Because in that moment, what he meant by culture wasn't food or music or storytelling or community. It was hierarchy. It was dominance. It was silence. And I won't be silent just because it makes him more comfortable. Now he's furious. Says I've insulted everything he comes from. Says I've become one of those women. Cold, disrespectful, feminist to a fault. But here's what I know. Respect isn't about fixing someone's plate. It's about showing up every day and doing the work. It's cleaning spit up at 2 a.m. It's scrubbing toilets and sharing laundry and listening when your partner says, I'm tired. It's raising a child together, not just when it's convenient, not just when the cameras are on. He says, I'm forcing a mold on him, but I've never asked him to be anyone but himself. He's the one trying to fit me into a box I never agreed to. So, am I the asshole? This story isn't just about gender roles. It's about the stories we inherit and the ones we choose to pass on. It's about the quiet moments when partnership starts to shift into imbalance. When the people we love get pulled away by louder voices. When jokes become jabs and tradition becomes justification. We live in a world where culture is often romanticized, and weaponized. But culture is not untouchable. It can be beautiful and brutal. It can be home and harm. And we have every right to question the parts that hurt us. What this woman did, speaking up, standing her ground, wasn't just brave. It was necessary, because sometimes preserving love means disrupting comfort. And sometimes being supportive means saying, "No, I won't carry this alone." So what do you think? Is partnership about compromise or equality? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This has been AITA Story Vault, where every confession holds a mirror and every story asks, what kind of person do you want to be? Until next time.